Hi, boys and girls. We're going to be reading chapters 16 and 17 today. Chapter 16 is called The Wolfson Collection. Cooper stands in line, his hands jammed in his pockets, nervously waiting his turn to board one of the school buses. He can't believe none of the other seventh graders noticed the ghost crawling on top of the lead bus, exploring every inch of the luggage rack. Luckily, it's a bright, sunny day, so it's easy to mistake the pale glow that is Roddy as an errant trick of the light. At last, Cooper reaches the door and steps up into the vehicle. The next thing he knows, his feet are knocked out from under him, and he's flat on his back in the aisle by the empty driver's seat. His first thought is for the GX4000. What if it breaks? Then Roddy's got nowhere to go back to. What happens to the ghost then? He reaches into his pocket, but before he can draw out the phone, Brock's big face appears about an inch from his. Did you fall down, kid? Here, let me help you up. He holds out his hand, but when Cooper takes it, Brock's opposite elbow comes down against Cooper's sternum, pinning him to the dirty floor. Get off me, Cooper complains. Hey, did you say something? Brock counters. Funny. The last time you talked, it came out all Shakespeare-y, like maybe you were trying to steal the other guy's part. It's not my fault I know your lines better than you do, Cooper shoots back. I think it kind of is, Brock tells him, still pressing down. You didn't learn that by accident, but this isn't about Romeo, is it? It's about Juliet. And like I said before, forget it. As Cooper struggles to get Brock off of him, a cloud of shimmering light swoops in through the open door and flashes into Brock's eyes. With a cry, he falls backward and Cooper scrambles up. What was that? Brock demands. What did you just do? The faint glow sweeps into Cooper's pocket and disappears. Nothing, Cooper says innocently. Don't give me that. You flashed me with a laser pointer or something. How could I do that? Cooper counters. You were pinning me down. Hey, what's the holdup? Mr. Marquise comes pushing through the line. We're supposed to be on a schedule, you know. He stopped short at the sight of Cooper and Brock, obviously in confrontation. For sure he's thinking about the Capulets' ball and how the DJ's microphone became a battleground for dueling Romeos. I don't have to remind you to, he says sternly. How important is it for us to be on our best behavior today. This is the one chance we get to see the largest exhibit of Shakespeare's material that exists in the world today. Remember, there is no ordinary museum where you can buy a ticket and walk in off the street. This is a private collection. It's a privilege for our school to be allowed to view it, one that can be taken away if we don't show a proper respect for our surroundings. Mumbling apologies, Cooper and Brock seat themselves on opposite sides of the aisle. The buses load quickly and start for the Wolfson estate. Cooper takes out his phone so Roddy can enjoy looking out the finger-marked and fly-specked window during the 15-minute ride. At last, the buses pass through a set of magnificent wrought iron gates featuring an old English W painted in gleaming gold leaf. The roadway is lined with stately poplars and snakes through immaculately groomed gardens. The mansion is impressive. With it leads paned windows. With its lead-paned windows and stone facade, but it's obvious that Mr. Wolfson's pride and joy, the focal point of the property, is the museum. It's designed as an Elizabethan palace, but in the form of an E, Mr. Marquise explains, a long main building with large wings at each end and a smaller central wing that serves as an entrance. A sniffle comes through the earbud. If I knew not that I was in thy world, says Roddy in a shaky voice, I would wager my very life that this was Howard House, home of the Duke of Norfolk. Of course, ne'er was I permitted inside such a structure, not I, the son of Orlok. The buses unload and the teachers herd the seventh graders into the museum. Cooper spies Jolie up ahead, walking beside Brock. Fine, Romeo's got his Juliet. Jolie turns around, scanning the crowd behind her, and waves when she spots Cooper. He waves back, but by that time her gaze has moved on, and he finds himself hailing Brock's unfriendly glare. Although the museum is designed to look as if it was built hundreds of years ago, the interior is elegant and modern. Stepping inside, the first thing the students see is a 12-foot-high bronze statue of William Shakespeare. There are oohs and ahs, and cell phones appear snapping pictures. Cooper pulls out GX4000 to give Roddy a view, but is careful to keep his fingers off the button. Roddy recognizes the figure immediately, and so we meet again. Thou thief, thou snake in the grass, thou small-brained cleaner of chamber pots. A curator welcomes them, ushering them 2 by 2 into a smaller theater for a video on the life and times of the bard. For the students who have spent all these weeks studying Shakespeare and learning Romeo and Juliet, it's actually pretty interesting. But Cooper hears barely a word of it. Roddy is ranting in the earbud, calling down curses, plagues, and pox on that jumped-up actor and false playwright who purloined my beautiful Barnabas and Ursula and turned into a massacre. When the ghost stops raving, Cooper assumes it's because he ran out of words, having used them all. The video goes on to the life of Somerset Wolfson and his obsession with everything Shakespeare. There are no longer handwritten manuscripts by Shakespeare himself in existence today. The only examples of the bard's signature are a few old legal documents now owned by Mr. Wolfson. Beyond that, the billionaire targeted the earliest published versions of Shakespeare's plays, the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth folios. In the centuries after Shakespeare's death, printers made changes in the text as they released new editions. Most of those changes were small, but they added up. That means that the first folio is the closest we'll ever get to Shakespeare's actually wrote. The Wolfson collection, the piece concludes, houses more of those first folios than any other museum in the world, and more than all the other museums combined. When the lights come back on, Brock lets out one of his notorious "I'm Romeo, wherefore art thou me? Wherefore art me?" announcements. He's shushed not just by the teachers, but also a handful of students, including Jolie. The tour begins, leading the students through stunning rooms with large glassed-in, climate-controlled cases. For a moment, even Roddy's complaints are silenced. "Mayhap these pages are printed in mine own shop," he exclaims reverently. "Perchance they were read by fair Ursula herself, and lo, yonder press might have been touched by these very hands." On the far side of the exhibit stands a 16th century printing press in the process of inking a quadruple-sized quarto page. There's an entire display devoted to paper in Elizabethan times. No two pages are quite the same, different thickness, different cuts, different shades of white. With a click, Roddy leaves the GX4000 and enters the case where the glass meets the plaster base. Cooper looks away, hoping that the others will follow his and not notice the ghostly form swirling inside the paper exhibit. "Don't do that," Cooper hisses once Roddy is back on the phone again. "Forgive me, Cooper Vega. To see such a wealth of paper hath pierced me to the heart. The very sight maketh my fingers itch to write another play, but alas, to what purpose? Evil Shakespeare would come back from the tomb to steal my work yet again." Despite Roddy's complaining, the ghost thoroughly enjoys the next gallery, which depicts Elizabethan daily life. There are examples of clothing that remind Cooper of the puffy shirt, vest, pantaloons, cap, and shoes that Roddy wears on the phone screen. The ghost points out several styles of dresses that adorned the fair Ursula. At the sight of the mannequin of a Queen Elizabeth I, Roddy opens himself out of the GX4000 and tries to kneel at her feet, hovering just a few inches off the floor. There are also suits of armor, weapons, cooking utensils, plates, cutlery, and furniture. "The dining table," Roddy exclaims in one hushed tone. "'Tis a perfect match for the one we had in our kitchen." "Maybe it's the same one," Cooper suggests in an undertone. "Alas, no. Father's brimstone experiment number 12 caused it to explode most violently. I can attest to its superb quality, for it burned very slowly and gave off great heat." "I guess brimstone experiment number 12 didn't go too well, huh?" Cooper commiserates. "'Twas better than brimstone experiment number 13, Roddy laments. "That was when my father was charged as a warlock. 'Tis a travesty that Alistair Northrop has been forgotten, whilst a charlatan like Shakespeare hath museums devoted to his false accomplishments." Roddy's mood improves when the curator leads the group out of the back door into Mr. Wolfson's scale model of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. Cooper is amazed at its sight and sophistication. With the capacity of a nearly 3,000, the original Globe was larger than the most Broadway theaters. There are three tiers of seating and a large ground-level open-air pit surrounding the stage for standees who could not afford a ticket in one of the covered galleries. "'Twas my dream to see Barnabas and Ursula performed in such a place one day," says Roddy. "Then you succeeded 1,000%, Cooper assured him. "Romeo and Juliet is one of the most famous plays in history. It's been performed millions of times all over the world." "Not my play, Cooper Vega. His." The class takes a few minutes to explore the theater, experimenting with some of their lines from the stage while their classmates report on the acoustics from the pit and the various tiers. When Cooper reaches the stage, the glower he receives from Brock would easily melt lead. Mr. Marquise shoots him a pleading look. The last thing the director needs is a war between the two Romeos. Here's Romeo's man, Cooper delivers second watchman's line. We found him in the churchyard. This place is amazing, Jolie calls from the top balcony. I can hear you perfectly. Big whoop, rumbles Brock. What's-his-face remembers his gigantic speech. He remembers your gigantic speeches too, Aiden points out. Brock glares at him. I could remember all of those too if I studied. When the group re-enters the building, the students feel the blast of air conditioning immediately. It's much colder here than in the galleries they visited before, and the curator explains why. This room contains the most precious part of the Wolfson collection, the rare first folios, practically the voice of Shakespeare himself. The curator announces with reverence. Would that I could spit. Roddy seethes. Through the earbud comes a sound that can only be Roddy trying his hardest to spit. Cooper fights down the urge to giggle. It's the biggest room they've been in so far, long, with cathedral ceilings flooded with filtered natural light. Dozens of display cases dot the room, each one containing a first folio under heavy bulletproof glass. The students are drawn to them like iron filings to magnets, peering down at the boisterous buzz of over 100 seventh graders diminishes into a murmur. Some of them read quietly. Most just stare. Shakespeare fan or no. Everyone 133. Pardon me, boys and girls. I cut off the page. Shakespeare fan or no, everyone understands that they are looking at objects of incredible age and value. Cooper Vega, Roddy's voice is urgent in the earbud. There's something here. Yeah, Cooper whispers, the first folios. He holds up the GX4000 to give the ghosts a better look. The ancient book is open to Hamlet, and Cooper can make out the line. To thine own self be true. Roddy said that once. Maybe the ghost had more in common with Shakespeare than he likes to admit. Not this rubbish, Roddy insists. I feel something of great strength summoning me, beckoning. One of the displays, Cooper asks. I know not, yet methinks I feel the attraction coming from beyond yonder door. Yonder? Cooper queries. Then he sees it. An interior wall stretches the full length of the gallery. It's white and featureless, with one exception. There's an almost invisible door at the far end, frameless, with no knob and only a recessed keyhole. The secret collection, Cooper exclaims. I understand this not. It's just a rumor, Cooper tells Roddy in a low voice, but everyone says the wolf has a whole stash of secret stuff that he can't display because he's not supposed to own it. Maybe what's calling you is something in there. And then a new voice, deep and resonant, but with a childlike enthusiasm, rings out through the galleria. Welcome to the Wolfson Collection. Into their midst strides a stocky man of medium height and a shock of white hair brushed straight back from his high forehead. Although he's never met the newcomer, Cooper recognizes him immediately from TV and newspapers. It's Somerset Wolfson, their billionaire host.